let's talk complements. There are two words, complement and complement. Sounds like I just repeated the same word, right? I didn't. Complement and complement are actually two different words spelled two different ways with two very different meanings. And you may be familiar with both of these words and their meaning, but I know you're familiar with at least one of them. I know you're familiar with the word complement when it's spelled with an I. These are the things that we like to give other people and get from other people. Like, you did a really great job on that project. Thanks for the compliment. You look great in that jacket. Thanks for the compliment, okay? So compliment when it's spelled with an I are referring to these types of things. But compliment spelled with an E is something totally different. Now we're talking about things that when combined or brought together create a state of wholeness or completeness. And you may have encountered this concept in your geometry class when you talk about complementary angles, for example. Or perhaps you have a best friend and you got one of these best friend charms that you put on a necklace, and one friend gets one half and the other friend gets the other half. And these are complements because when the two halves are brought together, they create a whole charm. They complete the charm and they make it whole. You can even extend this idea of complementarity out to relationships themselves. Maybe you look at your best friend and you think, my best friend not only compliments me by saying nice things about me and praising me, but this person compliments me because they sort of complete me as the being that I am, that I would be missing some part of myself if this best friend were to ever exit my life. Okay, so when we talk about compliments in our discussions, we're referring to this kind of a compliment, the activity of, or the thing that when brought together with something else creates that state of wholeness and completeness. Now, when we talk about term complements, we're simply talking about nouns or noun phrases that when brought together with some other noun or noun phrase creates a sense of wholeness or completeness. So you think about possible actions. If I wanted to account for all the actions, and I have already identified the category called possible actions, what other actions would I have to combine with that category to account for all actions? Did you say impossible actions? That's pretty smart. Yeah, if I take all the impossible actions and all the possible actions and bring them together, I will have completed the category of actions. All the actions will be accounted for. Similarly, if I have the category of true statements and I want to complete the category of statements, what do I need to bring in as its complement? False statements. If I have all the true statements and all the false statements and I bring them together, I will have all the statements. Similarly, there's some number of sincere apologies, there's some number of insincere apologies, and when I bring them all together, I will have all the apologies. Okay, so when we talk about term complements and using term complements in a version, what we're talking about are identifying pairs of statements that when brought together create a sense of completeness or wholeness. Now, sometimes it's not going to be real obvious what the term complement is for a particular term. So if one of my terms is blue thing, what's the complement to that? What would be the thing that I would bring in to together with blue things to account for all things? We might say, like, well, maybe green is the opposite of blue things, red is the opposite of blue things. And we have an easier solution, and that's the word non, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. But think about what non-blue thing means. What are non-blue things? Non-blue things are things like this can of water here. Non-blue things are like this green pen right here. Non-blue things are everything that aren't blue. All the blue things that exist are in the container called blue things, and everything else is in some other container. It's a non-blue container, okay? Similarly, there's some number of activities that are fun, and then there's every other kind of activity. Maybe it's not real obvious to us what the term complement for fun activity is. Maybe it's unfun activity. We could just say non-fun activity. And then we know, okay, this is not included in the category of fun activities. But when I bring non-fun activities together with fun activities, I have all the activities that there are. College student, what is it? High school student, is that the opposite? University student, cooking school student? No. We'll just say non-college student. And then when we bring these two terms together, we will have accounted for all the students that exist. We will have completed the category called student. Now, I want you to think a little carefully, and you'll read about this in your course text, about the distinction between not versus non, because non's going to feel a little naughty to you. Well, that didn't come out right. Non's going to feel a little bit like not to you in the way that it functions. But not and non are different in kind of an important way. So consider a statement like this. Some vegetables are green things. Okay, so this statement affirms that there are some number of vegetables that are in the category of things called green things. And the corresponding O statement, some vegetables are not green things, accounts for those things that are vegetables but are not included in the category of green things. And it might be tempting to think of that statement as saying the same thing as this one. Some vegetables are non-green things, okay? But they're not really saying the same thing. There's an important but very subtle difference between these two statements, and see if you can sort of pick up on it. This statement right here, some vegetables are not green things, it's asserting exclusion. In other words, this statement is saying, you know what, there's some number of vegetables that are not in that category over there. They're excluded from it. I'm not telling you what category they belong to. I'm just telling you they're not in that one. So it asserts exclusion. Whereas this statement, this I statement using non, asserts inclusion. It's saying, I've got this category. It's called non-green things. And there's a whole bunch of things in it. Things like this yellow chapstick is in it. There's also some vegetables in this category of non-green things. So I'm asserting inclusion when I offer an I statement. I'm affirming inclusion, okay? So not and non, they have a similar kind of function, but they also have a distinction that's important. All right, now you want to be really careful with your nons. And what I mean by that is you want to think about how you use them and not just kind of slap them on something as a way of completing the second step of aversion. So here's what I mean. So think about a statement like this. All bargain hunters are people who shop at Walmart. Now, what I see folks doing sometimes with this is they say, hey, I want to identify the term complement here for people who shop at Walmart. And so I'm going to do this. I'm going to say all bargain hunters are non-people who shop at Walmart. And it's like, non-people? It's like, think what you want about Walmart shoppers, but they're still people, right? So you can't just slap a non arbitrarily on your predicate term to create its term complement. You want to think really carefully about what would be required, what term would be required to complete this category. And if you approach it that way, you're probably going to come up with something like this. All bargain hunters are people who do not shop at Walmart. Okay, so if we take that term, people who do not shop at Walmart, and people who shop at Walmart, we've got all of these people, right? Those who shop at Walmart and those who don't. And so you want to think about how to really use your nons carefully so that you're referring to exactly what it is that you're trying to communicate.